Today on the TMZ Podcast.
Welcome to the TMZ Podcast. Harvey Lemon here.
Katie here.
And Jason.
Okay, so the Queen is buried. Well,
Yep.
I mean,
Breaking news. Yeah.
you know, I am surprised that, and I know that she was beloved in England, but still,
Oh, yeah.
I'm so not used to seeing a country come together because of where we live that it's really stunning to me. I think if I would have seen this 20 years ago, I'd say I wouldn't be surprised. But I am so stunned that a whole country can come together over anything. When you watch this from afar, it really struck me about us. I mean, it really struck me about us as much as it did them.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. I mean, the streets were just packed, and everyone. It seemed very like a loving environment, right?
Yeah.
Like I feel like if that happened here, it would be. It'd be so crazy. It'd be 50% of the people protesting.
Right.
something about her
what
death.
here would bring people together?
Well,
It would
9/11 sort of had that impact, right? I'm not.
That was the last
maybe you don't
time.
want to compare the
Yeah.
scales, but that was the last time we
Yeah.
were together, and that's a foreign attack. And,
Yeah.
and so that is the kind of thing that brings people together. But the death of any one person would never bring everybody together. I mean, we weren't alive, but you were for the Kennedy assassination. Did that have the
Oh, God.
impact that
Oh.
brought people together?
God, yes.
I mean, there were obviously dissenters, but
No.
few-
It was. I mean, it became maybe the biggest single event in my lifetime.
right.
I think it may have been the biggest single event in my lifetime. I remember I was only 13 years old, but I remember just being glued to the television, and everybody was part of that.
Right.
I mean, it was really shocking. And you're right, 9/11, but what else? I mean,
trying to
forgetting
think,
about the history, just think about the last 6 years in this country. I mean, I was watching this with envy. I was actually no, I really mean it. I was and at first I thought, oh my God, look at all this pageantry. On a level, I thought this is kind of ridiculous. But then I started changing my mind and just watching how, people there felt this way. All of them seemed to feel this way about her. And I just thought, God, this is such a good thing that there's some unifying principle or person in a country that
Well, let me
and
ask
we just don't have it.
Let me ask you a question. So she reigned for 70 years, and now she's gone, and a far less popular heir is now taking the throne.
For sure.
Is this unique to her, or does it say something about British society versus American society?
I don't know. I mean, you look at Diana. She brought the country together. I think William could be a unifying force if he plays it right.
So it's an American thing. It's that we just don't have. It's not just a unifying individual. We've had leaders from every spectrum of the every part of the political spectrum. I don't think any of them would have brought people together in this way.
And
it's something uniquely American.
But
that we
part
just
of it
can't do
too is that presidents come and go. And
Yeah.
she was there for 70 years. So she is the constant for just about everybody who's alive in England right now.
Right.
And I think that's probably different. But again, usually when people are there for any length of time, they become somewhat unpopular. That it's really hard to navigate that. And the Queen had her issues. I mean, during Diana's death, people were really angry at her.
Right.
If she died 20 years ago, it might have been a slightly different reaction, right? Because she was not nearly as popular 20 years ago as she became.
But
later in life.
she righted the ship,
Yeah.
which is really interesting. That, a lot of people, once they fall out of grace, it's hard to recover. She did. And I don't know. I mean, that's kind of, I got nothing
It's
else.
just the tradition too, and the ritual of it, of it's been around for so long that you just want to go and be a part of history, and people are happy to stand on the street and wait for hours and be a part of that.
I think there is something to that. The tradition
The
that the British
tradition,
have, and
yeah.
they feel it as part of their national identity. I think there's something there.
Yeah, but I think the tradition to me is a little arcane. But
Well,
it's
yeah, but
it's that they love her. They love her.
Well, then you're saying it's just about her.
It kind of
I think
is.
it's equal parts.
Do you think it's going to be the same with Charles?
He's uniquely unpopular, it seems,
Yeah.
as they knew. It's hard to say, how they felt about people in the past, but she was really popular.
But the
Okay.
photo I saw of him where he had the tears in his eyes made me soften on him a little.
You know what? This is a
you were
good.
an easy mark. Just one,
I just
one
want
photo at a time.
one single
He may have
tear.
just
I'm like,
pinned-
okay,
he
I
may have
forgive
just
you for
stubbed
all
his
of your
toe
pen.
and
You know, maybe this is a good transition. Tom Hanks having lunch with Tim Allen. I was really struck by this. I was struck by it for a couple of reasons because of this very thing. That as soon as I saw it, I mean, a lot of people were saying, oh, wow, there's going to be a sequel to Toy Story. That's what everybody was saying. What I was thinking was these two guys who have vastly different political views can come together, sit down, have a meal, and be friends. And that's something that isn't happening a lot these days. And I loved that they were doing it. And they weren't doing it for publicity. These are two guys who don't court the cameras like 1,000 other people that we cover at TMZ, where they court the cameras and then pretend, how dare you shoot me? You know, it's like,
right.
they don't court the cameras. So it wasn't like it was staged. I don't know. There was something about it that I thought was just wonderful.
Well, what it could have been about it is that y'all both would stand to make 9 figures from it. I mean, not to be too much of a
that's
cynic, but
that's the way most people are looking at it.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it like these are
Americans
two
coming together.
Well, these are two guys.
Yeah.
Who, you know, who one guy is really conservative and one guy is liberal.
Yeah.
And it's like that's what America used to be.
But I feel like people still do that. Don't you have friends that you
No.
go out to dinner with and you debate them politically, and you can still like at the end of the you have a nice time during dinner, or
Yeah.
maybe you go out with friends and you don't talk about it. I feel like that still happens.
I think
If
it
you've been
happens
friends with
less
someone
and
for-
less and
Yeah,
less.
I don't like
Really?
it very much. Yeah.
That's so funny.
No, but seriously, if you had a hardcore right-wing, anti-choice person on the other side of the table, it'd be hard to have dinner with them.
It depends how long we've been friends for. These
Yeah.
guys have been friends for a long time. Tom Hanks went to bat for Tim Allen when he didn't do the sequel for Toy
true.
Story.
And by the way, there are a lot of people who think he didn't do that because of his political views. They didn't align with Hollywood.
and Tom Hanks still went to bat for him in a magazine, or in an interview.
But I like that. I mean, I just like that, you know, because I think, listen, we've put polls on the website. Could you be friends with somebody on the other side of the political spectrum? And people say no. They say absolutely not. It is a deal breaker in this country.
And that's a new thing, by the way. That never existed through the 80s, 90s, 2000s. You never saw that. That is a new phenomenon the last 6 years, frankly. And I'm not blaming anybody in particular, but we have.
Oh, gee, what
become
happened 6 years ago?
No, but Trump takes office and
Yeah.
people entrenched, right? 6 years ago, and you couldn't be friends with somebody who was a Trump supporter, and a Trump supporter could not be friends with a non-Trump supporter. And he is, for better or worse, I'm honestly not trying to blame anybody. He is the divisive figure because you are for him or you are against him, and we have taken those lines in this country. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, I had like drinks with somebody yesterday with this family that I know, and we were talking about this, and I don't know. I think the weird thing is that, you know, there are people who support Donald Trump who are not necessarily racist or bigoted,
Sure.
but they do it for other reasons. But it's hard to understand that when the person they support embraces views that are so anti-democratic, and I'm not talking the party, I'm talking small d, that it's hard. You know, he's made it hard for people to embrace people who support him because how extreme and dangerous and damaging
But I
he
certainly
is.
know people who hold their nose to vote for him. Like, look, I'm small government. I believe
No,
in
I understand
low
that.
taxes, and therefore I can't possibly vote for a Democrat, especially one like Hillary Clinton, who's so divisive, or by Joe Biden, who I think is too old, and therefore I held my nose and voted for him because it's my civic duty to vote for somebody. Those people, that's fine.
No, I get it. It's
It's
just,
still hard though because of the bigger issues
Yeah,
at
yeah,
hand,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like,
It's
now
really
become-
hard.
It's
Yeah.
hard because it's become.
and he just leans in. It's like, it's unbelievable to me. I'm sorry, I don't want to get off on this because, you know, this has been done to death, but it is just unbelievable to me that I'm just being honest, that before he became president, you know, nobody saw this. I mean, no, I shouldn't say nobody. A lot of people didn't see this, especially people who knew him. He just seemed like this laissez-faire guy. And then all of a sudden, he runs for president, and this kind of dictatorial personality comes out. I think a lot of people I don't know. I just never saw it coming. I mean,
No, he fooled people who were close to him. Larry King talked at length
A
before
lot
the
of people.
election about how close he was. He knew him well. He said, "Oh, as a leader, he won't govern like this," and he governed even more extreme than he had campaigned.
and it
Yeah.
just keeps going and going and
But
going.
I don't think Tim Allen and Tom Hanks were talking about that, right? They're like talking about their careers and
But is
probably
that
what
a
they
bad
were doing.
thing?
No, I think that's a good thing. That's why they can sit down and
I think they were talking honestly because Buzz Lightyear was an abject failure at the box office, critically failed.
Oh, you think it's Tim Allen?
No. I think the two of them got together because both of them had a lot of, enjoyed this. It was a huge part of their career. This trilogy, these movies, and they wanted to come in and save the series, save the franchise. That's what I think. What brought them together. I think Tom Hanks said, "Tim, let's do this."
I just want to think they're friends. It would just make me.
then they're friends. I
Okay.
think they're having lunch
Thanks.
and they're friends.
Harvey,
They're
they are
best friends.
friends.
They have
They
that
are
necklace where the
friends.
heart splits
They
down
were
the
talking
middle
about
and
how
they
they're
each
gonna
have one.
give each other their kids
Yeah,
after they die.
yeah,
The whole
that's
thing.
They're
What you're
best
really saying
friends.
is they turned around
They're-
as they walked away and said, "See you later, asshole."
Right, exactly.
Okay, Kanye West. This is interesting to me. So Kanye West is not engaged in this divorce. He does just, he's had 5 lawyers. They've, last one quit on him. He does not want to respond to what he needs to in order for this divorce to end. Now, Kim and Kanye are divorced, but there's still custody and property settlement that they have to deal with. And he hasn't engaged, and he has to file papers and do all sorts of stuff that he hasn't done. And there's a trial now set for December. And if he doesn't do it, Kim's just going to go into court and say, okay, then here's what I want. And the judge is probably going to give it to her. Now, Kanye tipped his hand on Friday. He tipped his hand about what I think is the most important part, which is child custody. And here's what he said.
Doesn't matter how much money you have, the meaning that's going to be directly your church, your home is your original church. So even to this day, it's like I'll still give Kim advice on things that can help because that's going to go to the kids. That's going to go,
Right.
that she's still got to, basically 80% of the time raise those children.
That's really interesting because he's never said that before. And I think that's about what's going to happen in this divorce when it's final, that she's going to get around 80%. It'll be joint custody, but she is the primary physical custodian of these kids.
Right.
And him saying that is really significant. Even though he didn't say it in legal papers, which he's supposed to, it sounds like this can come in for a landing without a trial.
I hope you're right. I don't. There are a couple things that stood out to me here. Number one, he's not engaging in the process. As we talked about in our story, he's had 5 lawyers. All of them have come and gone. He's an impossible client. He hasn't been able to maintain the lawyers. I hope he's able to engage in the process in a meaningful way, and I'm not sure he can. I think this thing might just keep on careening towards trial, and which is a terrible result for everybody because then you get a judge who's stuck with this without one party who's really engaging, trying to divine what's in the best interest of the kids without actually hearing from the parties. The other thing that struck me from this is that the way he phrased this, even to this day, I'll still give Kim advice on things that can help. I can't believe that. You don't call your spouse or your ex-spouse and give them advice on how to parent.
Does that surprise you that
yeah,
he said
I
that?
mean-
Talk to them about how to do it. You have a conversation about the best ways to do it. You don't call and give somebody advice on how to parent.
It doesn't seem like he is participating in any sort of
He
teamwork
does not. He
in
calls
this
up
parenting.
and yells at her about what she's doing wrong.
Right, or
Yeah.
he puts it out in the media, or he tweets about it, or with we all saw the whole thing with the school. I want my kids doing this. Well, that's not really advice. Why don't you talk to your ex-wife privately and come up with a plan of where you want your kids
So what do
to
you
go to
think he
school?
does? What do you think he does privately? Do you think he sits down and
Nothing.
says, "Kim, what's your opinion about this?"
No.
I mean, that's who he is.
If I came home and say, "Sweetie, I have some advice on how you can better handle the kids," she would punch me in the face.
Yeah.
You just don't.
Well, that's
speak with
bad,
somebody
too.
like that. Yeah.
Let me ask you, why do you think joint custody?
Oh, because they both said that already.
Oh, they did?
Yeah. I mean, Kim wants him to, look, he has been a good father when he's present with the kids. He really has. And Kim has said that. So it's not that he's a bad father. He isn't. He's a good father. But look, I mean, Kanye has issues. And they're very public. And he also has a personality that, you wouldn't think teamwork is the highest priority of his.
No.
But look, the way this divorce is going to go is I think it's really significant that he said it 80% of the time because that's about what's going to happen with this.
Right.
The property stuff is easy because even if he doesn't respond to it when the divorce happens, all Kim's going to do is go into court and say, Your Honor, we signed a prenup, just enforce the prenup.
Right.
And that's that. There's not even going to be a dispute. He hasn't challenged the prenup, and the judge will just look at it and say, okay, this is the way it's going to go.
Right.
So I don't think it's going to be that complicated, but it's significant that he finally said it. And I almost think maybe he said it because he was getting pressure to deal with it because Kim wants him to deal with it.
Why won't he engage in this process? Because he just mentally can't get to the fact that the divorce is over.
He doesn't want the divorce.
Yeah.
I've seen guys like this who won't sign the papers because they think there's still like a glimmer of hope, even though you're like, bro, no glimmer.
Yeah.
Sign.
Why always guys?
Yeah, that's the way it works.
That's who I know.
That's the way it works.
That's I haven't seen any women do it.
Really? Interesting. Okay. Really?
Yeah. I love that you won't believe that.
Well, because it's both.
Well, I haven't seen women.
Okay. Fair point.
Just men refusing to sign.
I'm with Katie on this. You never hear about the woman who won't sign. It's always the guy.
Okay. Two more things. Where you choose the order. I want to do Bill Maher talking about presentism, and I want to talk about the University of Oregon football game.
Oh boy.
Oregon to me is fascinating. I mean,
Do it.
So the University of Oregon, they played against BYU up in Eugene. That's where University of Oregon is, right? They had a football game over the weekend, big time, both ranked in the top 25, national televised game, tons of fans in attendance. Apparently, the University of Oregon has now come out and issued an apology acknowledging that.
Well, why don't we play it first?
Oh, we have it? Okay.
Yeah, this is what happened in the stands.
The Mormons!
Horrible anti-religious chants coming from the Oregon fans. It's interesting, just to give it a little, not that it's context, but it's important to note, a week or two ago, their fans were criticized for using racial epithets in I believe it was I'm going to miss it. I forgot what sporting event, towards a female African-American athlete who was playing at BYU. They were, and the BYU had to come out, issue apologies about the racist chants that they were doing. Now, the University of Oregon has sort of reduced themselves to that same level by chanting the Mormons during this football game, and it is horrible.
It's disgusting.
We've seen this before, but
it's disgusting.
Yes,
but it's also, it's that intolerance in America.
Yep.
That I think part of it is, I think abortion in some ways has something to do with it because there's such a dividing line where religious people who are pro-life are squarely on the opposite side of people who aren't.
That could be.
And I do think that part of that, there's a contempt.
Maybe, but I also think that a lot of people who are more on the far extreme pro-life side, not all pro-life people certainly, but more far extreme, are also religiously intolerant. And I think there's a lot of religious intolerance here towards people who are very much Christians but don't follow the same pretext.
Yeah, maybe
they do. So I just think that it's hate from that cross.
But it's so interesting that these. I would assume that maybe this is a bad assumption that University of Oregon is pretty liberal campus.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah,
I would think so. And then you hear this stuff, and it's like, the hypocrisy of tolerance is just insane in this country. That be tolerant toward us, but we're not going to necessarily be tolerant toward the others. And on both sides.
Yeah, it's horrible. About maybe 25 years ago or so, Charles Barkley, while still playing in the NBA, was in Utah and made all these Mormons coming up, and this kind of thing towards Mormons is ubiquitous. They're a religious sect that for some reason people feel completely okay.
So let me ask you real quickly, what about Book of Mormon? Which
the musical?
The musical that
fabulous.
I loved it, but I mean, it was anti-Mormon. I mean, it just made a joke of Mormons. But it was really funny. So I'm trying to figure out.
Didn't it just hit on all? It made fun of all religions, though, right?
It went after Mormons most, but yeah, it made fun of religion.
But I remember,
generally.
It made fun of religion.
Right, yeah,
but
I was sitting there with my mother, and
okay.
she's Catholic, and I remember some parts being like, "Is she okay during this?" Because it really made fun of all.
It's okay to make fun of religion.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Yeah, because I love that, but I have a real problem with University of Oregon doing this.
But they're not making fun of anybody. They have vitriol, right? It's okay to make fun of Jews or black people or Hispanics. That's okay in a comedian's bit or on show. That's okay. You can poke fun at people all you want. That's great. This is hate. This is vitriol. This is you are lesser than me. And that's different.
Fair point. Okay, last thing. I just found Bill Maher. I mean, I look. I love Bill Maher. I just think.
Wait, you do?
Yeah. But I loved what he talked about with presentism. That the concept of this is that we are now judging people by today's standards, things that people did way in the past. And, I love he said, that a lot of people are scoffing at George Washington because he didn't have any gay friends, and they do. And it's like, if George Washington was living today, he'd have gay friends, Bill Maher said.
Yeah.
And so, but that's kind of just making a joke of the whole thing, which he did. But it is true that we are judging people with today's lens. And it's absurd. It's absurd that, there are things that are abhorrent to us today that weren't abhorrent 100 years ago.
Or 10.
Or 10.
Yeah.
Or 10. And yet we are judging and just going after people for things they did that are bad, looking at today, and a lot of them have learned that lesson, yet we're still.
It's a really slippery slope, though.
What do you mean?
Really slippery.
He's taking some heat for this.
Well, I mean, the point, he goes on about slavery, and slavery, he mentions, and it's true, has been around since the dawn of humanity, right? Homo sapiens go back 135,000 years.
Egypt,
there are
Greece,
slaves for 135. But I think it's a false equivalence to compare American slavery over the last, during that 300-year period to slavery that existed back in the Roman times.
I think that's right. Yeah. I agree with you on that. But I'm saying just generally, what I was thinking of, and I agree with you on that. But, I was thinking, in 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, I don't think we're going to be eating meat. I don't think we're going to be killing animals for meat. And we're going to look at it as barbaric, that we would kill animals to eat. I really believe that. Well, if that's the case, think about you guys. I mean, are you going to be viewed as barbarians because you ate meat in 2022? That in 2042, people are saying it's disgusting, it's awful, and I have a picture of you at a restaurant
I hope not,
on
because
Instagram.
There's lots of really, gnarly photos of me eating steaks.
No, but that's
just
what
so many burgers.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like, do you want to be judged in 2042, or should you be judged in 2042 based on the fact that eating meat today is not considered barbaric by a lot of people? By some, it is.
Yeah.
But
there'll always be some of that, and you have to dismiss it to some degree and maybe accept it. But there are things that have never been acceptable. I mean, women used to be able to hit their wives 50 years ago with impunity, right? Because they acted up, and the man got frustrated with them.
Men, you mean? Men hit their wives?
Did I not say
You said women hit their wives 50 years
well, that
ago.
happened too. men hit their wives 50 years ago, and we're not allowed to do that anymore.
But
right?
you know what?
There's a give and take with this, right? Because when you know better, you do better. So we should always strive to look at history and go, okay, actually that was not right. Let's correct it. Let's move forward. Do we have to crucify every single person that did anything wrong and take away their life? No. We should afford people grace for mistakes they made. But yeah, when you know better, you do better. So let's continue.
But is it a mistake? Is it a mistake in 2042? Would it be a mistake that you ate meat in 2022? Because that is the concept of presentism.
No. I mean, is it? It's not exactly. I mean, no.
Why? What's the difference between that and
between that and what? That's the thing. It's like it depends on what we're talking about.
I mean, look, I'm gay, and I know a lot of people that used the F word 10 years ago a lot, and I think they've learned.
Right. That's actually.
But I don't hate them because they did. If they've evolved to the point where they understand it. I mean, I grew up where it was considered, it was illegal.
As a kid, I used the word gay as an insult to people as a kid. It was just what we said. Oh, that's gay. We didn't even mean it to be homosexual. It was just used as
No,
an
I know,
insult. Yeah.
and I know you, and I know you're not homophobic on a good day. And but
on a really good day.
no, but you know, I don't. I know. I'm sure you did, and I'm sure you know. I know you had your days, and you probably used words. You know.
Yeah, I mean, there were things that came before me. Like, I never would have used the N-word in a million years. I've never said it in my life.
Use the F word?
I don't know that I did. Probably, but I don't remember that.
But that's what I'm saying.
But I knew that word was a step too far. If I used it, that would have been a problem. I don't remember using it. But I certainly said gay and made assumptions about people based on stereotypes and all sorts of things like that. Absolutely. I grew up a jock, you know, the whole thing, and that's the way we talked. And I'm not justifying it in any way. And looking back, I'm a little bit horrified by it. But it just never would have occurred to me it was wrong at the time. And I think that's what you're saying, right? It was just...
And well, that's what Bill's saying too, is name one person who hasn't looked back on something they
and
said
regretted it.
Or worn or done that's just been horrified.
Right.
There cannot be one human being on earth that has not looked back at something they've said or done and gone, oh my God.
Of course, and he made that point, and I think, and it's right. I mean, but it's also, we look back using our present lens.
Yeah.
And things change. So I don't know.
No, it's true. And to the point you're making, it's impossible to know exactly where to draw these lines. We can all agree that slavery in 1855 was a horrible thing that's unjustifiable based on the time, because there were plenty of people speaking out about it, and those people who held on to it were awful.
It divided the country.
So
it wasn't like it was everybody accepted it, because we had a civil war over it.
Right, exactly. But that said, like, how do I say that and then justify my use of gay as an insult, 35 years ago, or whatever it was? It's hard for me to draw those lines. It's a hard thing to do.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
Okie doke.
We did it.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.